Okay, I think we're good to go. I do apologize for the long delay. We've got a lot of tech problems going on here. Firstly, there will be a worry sound in the background. Unfortunately, my case fan seems to have something's wrong with it, so there's a bit of a brrr in the background. I do apologize, it's driving me nuts. But also, I've also had problems with the new YouTube interface. As some of you probably know, the YouTube studio has seen a lot of changes in the last few days. So I'll try to change my camera around. The camera's falling apart. Jesus. This is not a good setup at the moment. That happens when you only stream like once a month. And you may notice the lack of a YouTube chat kind of window over here. You are present. I'm actually watching chat right now. Problem is that again, they've changed all the links interfaces of all the former CSS templates don't work anymore. So I'm getting a lot of issues with a lot of things. But here we are. We've made it to our monthly Q&A. So welcome to everybody who's managed to join us. This was meant to be a 9:30 p.m. stream. It's been about 10 minutes late, so we should be alright. I don't expect this to be a particularly long stream. It's been a particularly short list of questions, I guess. A few people in chat right now have joined in on the Q&A, but it seems that most of us have been quietly chill. So greetings to everybody. I see a lot of people have started to fill in our chat. So I'll start off with a few quick announcements. In case I haven't already announced it elsewhere, I will be in Sydney from December 11th to December 15th. I will be participating in the Keisik coaching seminar up at the at Sydney Olympic Park. So if for some reason you have a reason, or I have a reason to see you, or you want to see me for whatever reason, I'm pretty flexible with my schedule. There are a few people I'm meeting with already. But for those 4 days, from Wednesday, December 11 to Sunday, December 15th, I will be up in Sydney. So if there's somebody I should see or place I should visit, do let me know, so I do have a chance to fit you into my itinerary, I guess. So that's interesting. That'll be happening. And apart from that, there's not a whole lot. I am probably going to be in Sydney again in January for the indoor festival. I'm seriously contemplating going because I've got nothing else to do, so why not? But there we are. So those are my quick announcements. Again, I do apologize for the rough setup at the moment. I've got a broken fan. I've got no chat window. We'll try and make everything work next time so that things will be less rough. But anyway, here we are. So a couple of quick questions. Again, I do apologize for the lack of the chat screen over here. Normally you can see yourself, but most of you are watching with the thing minimized anyway, so you can see yourself on the other side. That side, and the reversed here. So you probably see your chat on the window over here. I do apologize for the lack of interface otherwise. But without further ado, let's tackle a few questions. So I've got the chat open in my window. You can't see it on my screen, but you can definitely see it on my window. Let's go through a few quick things. What you miss, space? Not a whole lot. Just me fumbling around for 15 minutes trying to figure out YouTube's new changes. Minor gripe. I know the changes will make things more streamlined, but a lot of these things make other plugins incompatible, and my goodness, it is kind of frustrating to work with the new system sometimes. After making it work, it is kind of smoother. The previous streaming interface, for those who do streams, you have to jump through a few hoops to synchronize and preview. It's more of a one-click thing now, but other pop-ups don't work as they used to, so I'm going to figure that out. Finn, do you have to worry about YouTube taking down our accounts? No. YouTube's gone through a few changes recently, notably the FTC ruling on copper, as well as there was an announcement about how YouTube's reserving the right to delete or terminate accounts which are not commercially viable. There's basically no effect on you. They're not taking down accounts. I haven't heard about accounts being taken down using live chat on streams. That's making any sense to me. a lot of people are just simply overreacting to what's happening on YouTube. It doesn't affect like 90% of people or channels. For regular people, doesn't matter at all. Only very few people who are doing particular things will be hit hard, but for the most part, it won't affect the regular channels like what I do. It won't affect what you do as well. By the way, Finn, your brother tells me to tell you to go to sleep. All right, so let's go through a few things. I'll go through perhaps the prepared questions, and then we'll sync through and go through the live chat questions. Only a few questions. I do have them prepped on the screen. I think this is a very strange outerworld experience to see me. Oh, this is weird. Okay, I'll close this window and we'll flip over to our browser. My goodness. There, it actually works. Who thought about that? Okay, so let's have a look at some of these questions over here. Let's close that. Alright, so only a couple. I think the questions are drying up as of late, so I don't really have a lot to say. So it's most going to be the live stuff. Let's just pop over and get the questions from here. My goodness, I'm getting really rusty in these live streams. And most of this kind of an answer today, so we'll see how we go. Alright, so first one seems to be a thank you from Roy. So thank you, Roy, for sharing this message. Just wanted to say thank you, my fellow parent, for my son's class. Sparked my long-standing interest in archery again, and you sharing your experiences candidly and experience clearly led me to something that is bringing me joy, which is fantastic to hear. Just pulled the trigger on my first bow yesterday, a Spiggery Revolution target with the same basic wood core limbs in 24 pounds. Since that is what I was measured to be pulling on a club, and so on and so on. Amazed at myself for pulling the trigger on it. It feels strange, by the way, describing the act of buying a bow as pulling the trigger. You know, that's unless you're a compound archer, it doesn't make sense. And the grouping went widely spaced and vertical. Blah blah blah. Sorry. I could not find much of a target version possible, but I figured it would be a better bow than I'm an archer from the field for years, and absolutely nothing wrong with the Spiggery. Those are really good bows, and you'd be absolutely fine. And managed to get a Shibuya dual clip from a champion archer for a nice price as well. Maybe it'll rub off for me. And most of the time, the equipment you buy that's used from other people it's worth it. Second-hand goods are very valuable. They're very good bang for your buck. Most of the gear, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, hasn't aged that much. So you're shooting equipment that is just as competitive, just as good for maybe half the price. So if you've got like a good sight or a good riser for second hand, then you got some good deal. By the way, it's really weird not seeing the chat window here. I'll fix it next time. Next up, we have Boots, an actual question. If you only had an hour or less time for SBTs and other bow exercises, what would you do and how long per exercise? SBTs isn't meant to be a long exercise, by the way. I mean, the standard program recommended by Kisik Lee is about an hour a day anyway. So, look, some exercise or some training is better than nothing. So, if you only have an hour, that's perfect. If you have half an hour, that's just as good. Just get into the habit of doing one exercise and maybe rotate. So remember, if SPTs, there are 3 exercises. There's the repetition one, the strength one, where you pull and then let go, draw and let go, or let down rather. You do that as weight training for strength. Then that's one exercise. There's the endurance, where you hold for like 30 seconds to a minute. That's 2. And there's flexibility, where you pull the full draw to go an extra inch and then you reset. And that's exercise 3. And in a normal full SPT routine, you'll probably go through all 3. And that's a pretty serious conditioning exercise, which is really good. But if you only have time for maybe half an hour, then just pick one and do that each day. Any training is good, and one of the core tenets of any training, whether it's weight loss or weight training, progress is progress, no matter how big or how small. So if you only do half an hour of, say, just strength training like that each night, then that's something. If you rotate through each one, maybe one night you do strength, one night you do endurance, one night you do flexibility, that is a far better gain than doing nothing. So if you only have limited time, then pick one exercise and rotate through them. But if you have only 1 hour, that's time for a full exercise routine. That's probably that's more time than what more people are willing to give. So if you have that time, you have the commitment and discipline, then do any exercise. arrows. If you have more specific goals for competition, do you plan a more rigid routine, like more weight training, things like diet and other exercises, and more training, of course, more shooting. But if you're casually getting into it, then just doing something will give you more preparation than doing nothing. Trust me, as someone who does very little to train outside of archery, doing some training gives you a pretty big advantage over other people who are just turning up and shooting. So the only training that most people do is just shooting. Therefore, even just some training, even half an hour a night, half an hour every 2 nights, is going to give you a pretty big head start. That's my response to you there. Let's go through some quick questions from chat. If there's anything here, I might check chat just a bit later. That's fine. We'll flip over to our Facebook questions because those are the ones which are kind of flooding up here, but not a whole lot. Rich Looper has a good question, which I can't really answer personally. For 18 meters, is there any real drawback to a super high front of center? If that's what it takes to make the fat arrows tune. Will a 200 grain point be better than making the arrows 5 centimeters too long? Look, I said I don't shoot indoor, and I don't have an indoor set of arrows. Unfortunately, I can't really comment on the effect of having a super heavy front of center. Rule of thumb is make sure the arrow is tuned. If you have a very heavy point to make it tunable, then nothing wrong with that. And for the most part, especially at 18 meters, it's not going to have a dramatic effect on the distance of the arrow because you're only shooting 18 meters. But perhaps somebody with more indoor experience can share that their experiences. On a similar note, I think Nathan here has a question. What's my best indoor score? I don't think I've ever shot indoor. I mean, I've been to a few indoor ranges, but I've never shot indoor before. Our club is outdoor only. We do have an indoor range at Point Cook, but I rarely go there. I've only been there once in the last 3 years. So if I do shoot indoor, I'll be going down there. They are open during the week, but I personally don't go out of my way during work nights to go and shoot. So all my priorities set out there. So because I don't have an indoor range, I don't typically shoot indoor. Therefore, I actually have no indoor ranking and no indoor score. So who knows what it would be. Probably wouldn't be very good. Next up we have Vintara's next form check video to be determined. As you can see, I've got a few tech problems as it is, so not entirely sure when I'll get the form check video. I do have a few submissions, but I've got a lot of things breaking down at the moment, so not too sure when it will be. Didier Ng, arrow rest, bolt on or stick on, depends on what bow you're using. Bolt on tend to be more convenient for many beginners because all you do is screw it in and it stays there. I think some people might be turned off by stick-ons because it sticks on and you can't take it off or it might fall off and so on. But generally speaking, stick-ons are mostly the normal way to use arrow rests. Bolt-ons tend to be used by bows, which will see a lot of rugged use. So club bows, for example, and beginner bows tend to come with bolt-on arrow rests because they don't break. Whereas stick-ons, they'll eventually, the adhesive will dry and it'll eventually come off. But it's easily replaceable. So either way is fine. The main thing with bolt-ons is that you can't use a plunger. And because of that, stick-ons are normal. You stick the rest on top of the burger hole, and therefore you can put a plunger on it. Whereas if you're using a bolt-on, that particular hole is used for the rest, and therefore you can't use the plunger button. So yeah, bolt-ons, stick-ons are the standard. I guess most people use stick-ons. That's what we assume you will use. Nothing wrong with bolt-ons, but they're far less customizable and personalizable, which means if you're using something else like a plunger, then you'll find yourself a little stuck on that. Next up, we have Christian, who's in chat right now. A couple of things here. Is there a way to make an adjustable finger sling? You can buy commercial ones. I mean, the ones which you're thinking of are basically a band with the plastic clips which you move back and forward. Can you make your own? Certainly. The same thing, just get a bit of lace or string or thread and just clip on some plastic things and move up and down. They're like $2 in the store, but you can make your own without any difficulty if you really wanted to. Ideal loop, whatever's comfortable for you. So no recommendations, whatever works. Pretty plain answer, I know, but there's really nothing to it. And the last formal question comes from Christian again. any temperature limitations or cautions for remaining in outdoor bows and arrows is the shooting in 0 degrees, any different from shooting in 20 degrees, leaving the shooter out. So the answer is actually yes. I wouldn't say there's any limitations. Most normal conditions, it's not gonna cause any risk to the bow. Now some bows or some limbs, especially black ones, tend to suffer a bit in extreme weather because the heat might warp the limbs, especially wooden ones. Carbon not so much, but wooden limbs will be more affected by changes in temperature. So the answer is not, for the first one, are there limitations? No, but it will affect how the bow performs and the flight of the arrows. There are a couple of things that come to mind. Firstly, like I just said before, it will affect the limbs. Some limbs are more susceptible to changing their performance in different weather conditions. And again, wooden limbs are much more prone to this than carbon. The second one is the flight of the arrows. The air temperature will cause variations in the amount of lift or the amount of air coming up. So hot air rises, so in warmer conditions, the arrow is more likely to travel further or travel higher than your point of aim, whereas in cooler conditions, it will drop a little quicker. This is something you have to watch out for when you are doing sight settings, for example. You should also be recording the air temperature and the wind as well. A mistake we're seeing people make, and myself included, we do a quick sighting session. So we go to the club, we do our sightings, and we don't record the exact conditions. And when we go to a different club and the conditions are different, then our sight settings don't actually match. So do keep in mind that yes, the air temperature, wind of course, will affect the way you shoot and the way the arrow performs and the way the bow performs. So do keep a log of what conditions, and ideally you would sight in the ideal conditions, but barring that, do keep in mind things will change depending on the conditions of the day. So the short answer is yes, it will differ. But it's nothing to be really extremely worried about. If it's really cold or really hot, it's not gonna damage the bow or anything, or just affect the way it performs in flight. And that's the brief answer. Again, it's really weird not seeing chat here. I normally see my OBS and I see like a chat screen here, and you probably see so too. But hopefully with the min-miles window, you'll see. So that actually answers the formal questions, and we're getting fewer and fewer of these as the days go by. We might change the format or maybe interview someone else next time, but for the time being, that's our repaired list. Like I said, these tend to be short streams now, but we are hanging out with people in chat, and the most important thing is having people in chat asking questions, helping each other out. So this is where you get a chance to ask questions. So I'll be going through chat. Again, I do apologize for the lack of the chat screen on my actual interface, but I'm sure you'll be fine watching the sidebar. What can we get from chat at the moment? So feel free to ask questions. If you want me to see the question clearly, just tag my name at NewSensei, so that way it appears on bright orange on my screen, as you probably know from chat. Otherwise, let's talk about some stuff in chat. So hi to everybody, by the way. Got a few people in chat. Steve Kirk, quick question. Is it better to buy a good riser and cheaper, lighter limbs for a first bow than change limbs? Yes, that's generally good advice. A good riser will last you much longer. The other thing with the riser is that it's the hub of the bow. It's the heart of the bow. So by investing in a decent riser, especially one that you like, it fits you, has good balance, it feels right in your hand, that will get you much further. If you buy a cheap riser, the cast aluminum ones, they're fine to start with, but what you will find is that it is kind of frustrating to use because there's little feedback. So it will limit you because it won't feel as good. It will tend to torque more. It won't be as rigid or as sturdy, and it will affect performance. So you can get away with cheap limbs because the limbs themselves aren't going to really dictate the shot. For a good archer, there will be a difference, but for a beginning archer, it's not gonna be the bottleneck. The riser will be. So if you lift or you remove that bottleneck, and you have a decent riser, then you can pretty much shoot for a year, 2 years, 3 years with the same riser. The limbs, the reason why we say go cheap on limbs is because we'll assume that you'll change limbs as you go up in draw weight. So there's no point in spending hundreds on limbs when you're gonna change them in like 6 months or a year. So use the limbs as a developmental stage, progress through cheap or moderate price limbs, and then once you decide this is the weight I'm comfortable shooting with, then splurge on your highest quality set of limbs. That's what I did with my win limbs, and also what I did with my the Uka limbs. Although I'm using both. They're both the same similar draw weights as well. I was kind of spoiling myself with the Uka limbs. Though I didn't buy the best ones. So I just bought the bottom tier ones. So they weren't that top tier. Still very good limbs though. But yeah, the general advice is buy an affordable riser, a good one, but you can go cheap on limbs and advance to better ones later on. Let's see. Alex Bladung. How's the interaction between the local clubs like yours and Archery Australia? We had some interesting drama with the Archery Ireland Facebook page when they decided to hold the AGM Halloween night. The interaction between clubs and AA, so our national association. It's ironic I'm not wearing an Archery Australia shirt. We're wearing an Austrian shirt. So Archery Austria, same country, whatever. We're fairly autonomous. There's very little oversight or interference from Archery Australia to the clubs. We mostly work through Archery Victoria, so we've got a state level, then national level, so it's a bit of a tier system. We go through the state goes through to the national association. So we don't really get involved in, as a club, we don't really get involved in like the national level association. So there's not much interaction, which is a good thing in some ways, because we can run the way we want and there's nothing really happening. We're not really involved in decision making. At the same time, we kind of get like, we don't really know things soon enough. I guess some people in the know, most people aren't. So it gets a little slow to transmit news and updates. So people who are active in the scene will know more. For example, one of our members is active in national and state competitions, so he knows more about the rule changes and judging and so on. Whereas the rank and file would have no idea what's going on. But apart from that, there's not a whole lot of drama which happens for the rank and file. Most of us are just doing the normal thing. So yeah, there's not much to comment on in terms of interaction between the clubs and the National Association. Curious what the drama was, if you might want to indulge me in that, on Halloween night. So we hold AGMs for the state, so the club presidents are invited to the AGM, and they have the ability to vote, so they can do that. I've been to a couple of AGMs for the state. Nowadays, I normally do it through Zoom, mostly because they hold the meetings either in some faraway club, or they do it online anyway, because it's much more efficient to do online. You kind of lose out on interaction, but I just kind of put my hand up digitally and say I vote in favour of this. I don't really have a comment to add about the way things are run, so I'm not that invested. I just do my thing, run my club, shoot my arrows. So nothing really dramatic about the way we interact, unfortunately, if you're looking for some juicy stories. Finn, talk about the YouTube account. Yeah, I've heard something about that, but I don't think that drastic. But again, I'm not involved in it too much. Decibel or Decibel. I have a question about a perfect release. If I shoot with a face anchor and draw a little through release, I have a perfect release, but I can't do it when I shoot Olympic style. Not sure what the question is. Okay, it's an observation. I'm not sure exactly what the question is. If you could rephrase it as a question, it might help out a bit more. Francois, I have wooden limbs, and I find that when I string the bow, the first 30 to 50 shots, my arrows go lower and lower progressively and visibly. Do you think it is the wood setting in or my body tiring out? Most likely your body. Firstly, I mean, if you're shooting like a self bow, like if you're actually shooting a one-piece wooden bow, you do need to stretch out the limbs a bit by pulling it multiple times before you start shooting it. That's normal. If you're shooting a modern recurve, like a fiberglass of wood limbs, then you don't need to do this. Wood doesn't need to warm up for a wooden recurve like that. So more likely after 50 shots, if you're going lower and lower, that's usually a sign of fatigue. That's a classic fatigue sign. you're not pulling consistently, you're collapsing the shot, and therefore it's less energy, so the arrows may drop lower. That's very normal. Nearly everybody does this when shooting, especially starting out. That is a typical sign of getting tired. Unlikely to be the wood, especially with 50 shots. That's not the wood doing that. That's probably you. If anything, then I will expect the wood setting to be it'll go faster because it's warmed up basically. So that, most likely front spot, that's probably you getting tired. Again, that's pretty normal. Level 8. Whoops, I just skipped everything there. Level 8. Why not younger? Shaved. I know, like a bit of facial hair. We'll add like 5 years to my age. Take it off, minus 5 years. Baby face guy. A little chubby these days, but still baby faced. Let's see. Christine, hi, nice to meet you too. Hyper casual. The arrow rest wear out over time. Depends on which arrow rest. Plastic ones eventually will, and they'll do so sooner. But you can shoot like 5,000 to 10,000 arrows through a typical plastic rest. More likely to come off or anything else. I've had a few of the plastic arms wear out, so eventually it will have enough stress fractures, and it will eventually start ripping and tearing off. So yes, plastic rest will. Metal ones probably won't. They'll last nearly forever. More likely you'll lose a screw and it'll come off around then the whole thing wearing out. So that's not likely to happen for a top level rest. Brendan, do I think it is possible to shoot like Lars Anderson? Depends on particularly which element of Lars Anderson we're talking about. The hardest thing when it comes to talking about Lars Anderson is what people actually mean. If we're talking about things like shooting from the right side, using the Slavic or the Sassanid draw, then the answer is yes, these are standard techniques which are used in most Asiatic archery, so you can learn that almost overnight. If we're talking about shooting the way he does in terms of his skill level, it is possible, but you've got to dedicate time to do so. The reason why you don't see most archers do so, but even the ones who shoot Asiatic, is that he specifically shoots using a stunt or trick mindset. And this is an insult. A lot of people get insulted by referring to this as trick archery. But even the people I hang out with, I mentioned Space before with Ahmed. I hung out with the people at Archery Ascension and Maidan in Sydney. There's no like a negative view of Lars. But even the people who practice the exact kind of archery he practices, and he's based off Saracen archery or Ottoman archery, they see him as very much a trick shooter. He's very good at being fast, he's very good at stunt shooting, but it's not the same martial archery, the martial art which archers actually practice. And the schools which we learn traditional archery from are more closely related to the martial archery, whereas Lars takes that, he's popularized it, but he's done it in a very high performance exhibition kind of way. So can you shoot like him? Yes. Is he talented? I would say no doubt he's talented. He's definitely capable of archer. But to replicate him will require a lot of intensive and specialized training to do so, which is different to the goals of most archers, even those in the same discipline as what he does. The short answer is yes, it is possible, but very unlikely unless somebody's going to spend their time doing so. So that's the answer there. James Jackson, is it worth getting Hoyt form over ILF? Look, so I'm sure there are people who argue for and against the formula system. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's a huge difference. People shoot IOF fine, people shoot Hoyt formula fine. So whatever the differences are, it's not going to impact people on a high performance level. Probably won't impact you at your level. So get whatever you can afford easily, but don't stress too much about it. Jared, I'm about to spend about 2 months away from home and archery. How worried should I be about skill deteriorating? 2 months, it depends on how much you already commit to the sport. If you're a casual shooter and you're only doing it for a short time, then that's not going to really affect you a lot. If you're a high performance archer and you train a lot, then 2 months can make you lose your edge. So you won't regress tremendously and you'll recover your form within like the first session. But you might lose some physical conditioning and you definitely will lose the mental process. If you can, at least get a stretching band, bring it with you, so you go through the motions of training, so you still have the mindset and the muscle memory and the physical conditioning to carry you through for a couple of months. So try to do something. Visualization and mental training are also important as well. So, things like meditating, things like visualizing shot process, and especially using a stretching band, those things will help a lot. It's better than doing nothing for 2 months. Mike, please address tuning or plunger tuning. That's a bit more complex. I recommend other people do this. I think Triple Trouble Archery has a good series on that. And Jake Kaminsky has a discussion on plunger tuning. I don't really touch the plunger a lot because of what we do. If it works, we kind of leave it. Plungers are very fine-tuned accessories, and if you muck around with it, it'll screw up your tune. So I don't really touch it. I don't really talk about that much, but you find other people who might talk about it a bit more. But I recommend you don't stress too much about it. So if it works, it works. Space Jockey, enjoyed the Ahmed collab. Any others planned for the near future? There's nothing planned, by the way. But it's very likely we'll see more of Ahmed and the crew at Archery Ascension in the future. Archery Ascension, which is in Melbourne, they're setting up their range. They're training their horses. So, in the future, you might actually see more horse archery. I actually might try horse archery. I might let them ride a horse first, but this is such a great group of people, and they'll be very happy to be involved in future projects. So, we're not going to close the door completely. Definitely, Armin and I will be meeting in Sydney in a couple of weeks. We won't be collaborating, we're just having a chat, having dinner. But there's definitely opportunities for more of that in the future. I really liked it too, by the way. It's a nice change of pace. I think it was one of those life-changing things. I've been doing a vlog on that. I haven't compiled the footage yet. But that was really, really fascinating for me. I'll be definitely doing more of that in the future. And how's your shooting going? Have you avoided what's causing vertical inconsistency? Did you move the clicker out? A lot of it is kind of form settling in. I think it's more of a mindset, a mental thing rather than a technique thing. Once I finished with Ahmed and the crew at Archery Ascension and kind of translate that kind of centeredness and empty mind towards my own style of archery, and I'm shooting much more consistently. So I'm definitely got a few things in my mind which I think I need to fix up. I've got moments of excellent shooting, but normally it gives way to fatigue and mental fatigue, and therefore I tend to lose it a bit. So I haven't really pushed through and made a breakthrough, but I do have some inspiration to work with. So haven't really figured it out yet, but it's something which it's a work in progress, and I feel a bit more confident going into it. Kevin M, have you seen last spot? I haven't. But the recurve bow he uses is really nice. Yes, he uses he uses 2 bows. He uses the Bear Kuma. I think those are the traps that he has. But the one he notably uses is the Bear Takedown, which I have. So I've got the Bear Takedown. Bear released a special edition, a very limited edition of the Rambo Last Blood version, which is the color scheme we see in the movie. But the bow itself is a fairly old design. It's updated every year with new schemes, new wood, new colors. It's actually there's a whole Facebook group dedicated to people who collect Bear Takedowns. So some of the color schemes are amazing. There are quite a few limited editions. It's their flagship recurve, but I'm fortunate to have one. It's actually Grizzly Gems, which I bought off him as a sponsorship. So yeah, it is one of the best bows. So the fact that they've included the takedown in Rambo Last Blood. I mean, the movie is a movie, but the bow itself is actually an excellent bow. It's one of the luxury buys for a traditional recurve. Excellent look, excellent feel, and excellent quality bow. So yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but definitely the bow works. It's a very, very good bow. Anna, thanks for the content. Thank you very much. Jared, would you please explain how wraparound arrow rests work, or why they're so much more expensive? You can't wrap your head around it. Wraparounds tend to be more popular for bear bow. There are a couple of reasons why, which I can't really explain very clearly at the moment because I don't really understand the process myself. But wraparounds tend to be more popular for bare bow, whereas the normal rest tend to be more popular for sighted recurve. It's more to do with the position of the arrow and string walking for starters. But yeah, it's to do with how the arrow interacts with the rest. They're not necessarily more expensive, but the good ones are, of course. But if you see some of the really good flipper rests, they're just expensive as well. They're not superior, but they tend to be preferred but for more specific reasons. So you can ask somebody else. Unfortunately, can't really tell you that in a very clear way, so I won't answer that question. Hyper casual, what sight would you recommend for a new archer? I'm looking at $100 riser and $100 limbs and 20-pound bow for your 9-year-old. If for your 9-year-old, if you're only spending $100 on a riser, then buy a $50 sight. The cartel sights are very affordable. They're fine. Just a $50 sight, even a $25 youth sight, it's fine. You just need a sight to practice with. The cheap sights tend to be a little clunky to use, but for people who are young and starting out, doesn't matter. They tend to be more fragile. Yes, so don't drop them, but don't if you're spending $100 on a riser, it doesn't make sense to spend like $100 on a sight. Just spend $20 or $50 on a sight. That's enough to start with. So cartel, $50, just any $50 sight is completely fine. Have a drink break. Coke no sugar, peach is an acquired taste. I've recently had fun trying things like the Pepsi flavors, so Pepsi raspberry, Pepsi cream soda. A little strange, but they're nice because they're Pepsi. The Coke no sugar. I'm not sure anyone likes Coke no sugar. I like Coke Zero. Coke no sugar is the same thing, but it tastes a little different. But wow, Coke no sugar with peach is something which no. Either Coke no Zero, or peach, not Coke no Zero peach. That's a weird one. Not as weird as coffee Coca-Cola. If you watched my live stream for like 8 months ago, I had Coca-Cola coffee. That was weird. I'll tell you that was weird. It wasn't bad, it was weird, but this is getting there. Alright. How are we going, by the way? I know we're going a little quickly, but chat's pretty active tonight, so we've got a few more questions going through. Oh, Nathan actually answered the rest question, so that's fine. Thank you. Let's see. Hey, Nathan explained it. Good, thank you. All right, I'm not wrong. So thanks, Nathan. I'm lagging behind the chat a bit here, so I'm trying to read through everything, but I'm absolutely right. Okay. Decimal again. What to do when I shoot Olympic style to have the same perfect release? Since the anchor's more tight, I can't draw. Oh, I see what you're doing there. Okay, so before you said that, from what I understand, when you're shooting a more traditional style like high anchor point, if you keep on drawing, release, it's clean. Whereas if you shoot Olympic style, we have a tight anchor, you stop and then release, it's rough. I think I know what you're talking about. That's one of the toughest things to train in. Just because it requires perfect practice or perfect process. What tips do I have? I don't really have tips. Mindset is important. Understand that even with Olympic style, even with the clicker, let the release surprise you. That's something you see a lot. Now, some people will disagree on the finer points, but this is true for most releases, no matter what style technique you use. The release should be a gentle surprise, not a sudden whoa, but more of a, you don't expect to let go and then you let go. So don't anticipate and don't consciously try to let go of the string. Letting go of the string and achieving a clean release is about relaxation. So if you relax, then you will achieve a clean release. If you try to force it, then it will be a rough release. It'll be a pluck, as we call it in modern archery. So think of relaxing. Don't think at all. Empty mind is what we talk about in traditional archery, and same with modern archery. Empty mind. Just stretch out. Let the body feel with at its maximum length, or if you're using a clicker, then the clicker will go off. And then you relax. Everything just relaxes. That's the cleanest way to achieve a good release. It is to relax, empty mind, let it surprise you. The more you anticipate it, the more likely it is that you will pluck the string. That's probably where you're causing it. Okay, next question. Hope that helps, Decibel. If you need more, just ask, by the way. Burlap sack. Nice name. What is a good way for someone to learn Asian archery in Australia? Where are you based, Burlap? Okay, so if you're based in Sydney, you have one of the best clubs, which are based on Asian archery, and that is Maidan Archery Club Australia, which is in the outskirts of Sydney. If you're in Melbourne, I recommend you get in touch with Archery Ascension. They're just starting up. I'll do a video about them very shortly, but they're a very good bunch of people just starting out there. If you're based elsewhere, I don't know, find people, network with people, go on like places like the Archery subreddit or ATAN and ask if there's anyone in Australia or in whatever city you are. If there's no one near you, then you're kind of stuck. But there are definitely people who practice, for example, Gao Ying's archery or Turkish archery. Sorry. So it depends on which city you're at. All I recommend is find people who are more likely to be doing the same style. You might find some clubs have traditional archers, or just try to get in touch with a group or someone who you know does it, and see if you can practice together. Otherwise, see if you're in Sydney, then there's definitely a good chance you'll come across some of the more established schools. I'm not sure if Queensland has any, or definitely I don't think Perth has any. So if you're out there, then no luck. But if you're in Sydney, there's definitely something there for you. Let's see. Adam, hi from England, or hi to England too. Boki, do you feel it's better to take time between training sessions? Training every day, you can get unappreciative and sloppy. This will depend on your approach and mindset to training. Regular practice is better than long practice. So it's better to have like an hour each day rather than 3 hours in one day, or 3 hours in 3 days. It's just as fine too. But you don't have to practice every day, but you should focus on good practice. If you are getting unappreciative and sloppy, then yes, you will develop bad habits, and yes, you should take a break from training, but you need to reset and address the issues. If you are getting sloppy in form, then it doesn't really matter if you take time off. You'll still be sloppy in form, and you're kind of hoping that when you come back, the problems solve themselves, and sometimes they do. Not reliable, and it can take longer to reach the desired goal if you passively allow yourself to kind of figure things out using your body, your brain, or whatever. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to practice regularly, but do be active in addressing any faults which pop up. If you have a coach, excellent. If you have a training partner, someone to observe you, just as good. But training is meant to give you feedback. You can't avoid feedback, you can't avoid training. So if you are having trouble focusing on training, try to address the issues why. If you're having a really bad session, don't push it, just have a break and come back the next day. But don't intentionally stagger your training to avoid this. These are good things to go through. Gizmo, haven't tried reach out to Armin Herman? Not yet. I don't see there's any reason why I wouldn't do that. So at some point in the future, likely, if he wants to collaborate with me and vice versa, then that's something we can definitely talk about. Armin's one of the greatest resources right now on YouTube, especially for AJ the Archery. That's what he specializes in. I always say this, we need more people making content on YouTube, and he's one of the recent ones who've broken through. We've seen, obviously the Push is making a lot of good content right now for traditional archery. We've got quite a few compound channels, the compound bow hunters, but there's not much for Asiatic. There's like Lars Anderson, and there's like Armin Herm actually teaches you how to do stuff. So definitely will encourage people to watch him if they haven't already. Collaboration, sure, why not? I'll think about something in the future, but that's definitely something we can work on. Let's see. There's something just mentioned before. Again, the expansion is supposed to be slow and steady, or a little explosive. It's slow and steady. It's not meant to be explosive at all. You don't want a sudden snappy release. You want a gentle release. Steve, is it best to travel further to buy a bow at a shop with a range? No, not really. If you can try it in the shop, that's fine. Most shops will have a place for you to try the bow, either in the shop's range or at the back somewhere. Very few stores don't have a space to actually shoot the bow. So if you can't shoot it, just at least hold it. But the main thing is you don't have to shoot the bow to know how it feels. You just hold it in your hand and go, oh, I like this bow. That's the thing. So you don't have to go out of your way to go to a range to buy a bow. Sveinung, just wanted to say thank you for your video. She got my son interested in archery, so he joined a training course. He's got me interested, so now we go to archery training 2 times a week. Fantastic. It's great to hear people getting involved in archery because of me. I mean, Finn is watching it right now. He got the archery because of me. Now he's, like a national champion in the making or something. So he's doing all right. By the way, good to sleep, Finn. So yeah, no, it's fantastic to hear. Especially when people do it together. We can get really carried away sometimes with, doing our own thing and not realize the impact we have on other people. So it's really nice to hear that you are getting into archery because of that. So well done, and I wish you all the best in your archery journey. And now we're whinging about, Coke. Yeah. I agree with you, Demarcus. Yes, it doesn't taste like proper Coke. It tastes like medicine to me, so maybe it's my palate, but, kind of regret. Yes, I've seen Jörg's new video. Unfortunately, bad news, by the way. So Jörg sent me the second version of the Genghis Khan, the one with the stripper clips. Unfortunately, customs. So, you could argue that technically it's not a crossbow, and he definitely argued that it's not a crossbow, it's not a slingshot. But unfortunately, the siege notice, which I got, the customs identified it as a crossbow and a crossbow part according to their definition. So I didn't make a protest and claim. It was rejected, so I declined it. I forfeited the items. Unfortunately, all the hard work which Jörg put into making the version 2, at least the version I have. I think I only made one. He made it, he put it on his channel, he sent it to me. Customs got it, so yeah. Is it illegal? Again, I don't want to have a court battle over it. I'm still ahead basically. So I didn't get the second model of the RGK with the stripper clips. I've seen the other ones. He is thinking about sending to me, but problem is that, well, if Customs got it once, then they might get it again. My theory, by the way, was that because I didn't expect him to send me a lot of stuff. So last time he only sent the bolts, and he sent the IGK, the Genghis Khan itself. So it was a wooden quiver on the box, and that's what it looks like. So arrows and quiver make sense. I think what happened this time around was that he also sent the Legolini, which is the mini version of the tool that he had. And I think, we imagine like customs, you have a box which has broadheads. Sorry, that's my Coke there. A box with broadheads, a box with lots of arrows or bolts, a crossbow-like implement, and a thing which looks like a stock. They're gonna go, that's a crossbow. If my hunch is that if you set these things separately, or if you didn't even include the Legolini, then there's no recognition. It's not a crossbow. It's not something you put on a crossbow. It's just a wooden block. So I think maybe Jörg might disagree with me, but I think he was a bit too ambitious by sending me all these things. He sent it through before to Australia, but this time around Customs got it. So we've learnt from that. I'm still fairly confident if these things are sent separately without the broadheads and without the Legolini and other toys that he makes, it wouldn't trigger any of alarm bells. But because this particular package had a lot of crossbow look-alike things, Customs probably went crossbow. They didn't reverse my dispute, so basically, I mean, even with a crossbow, I technically do have the right to own one because the way it works in Australia is that, at least recently, as long as you're a member of Archery Australia, then you do kind of have the license to own crossbows. So I technically could do so. But I'm not gonna. The other choice between either showing I have a license for one, or the other option, which is this is the wrong classification. I don't want to go through the trouble of saying I have a license because I prove everything. I said that these things aren't crossbows. They rejected that, so had one shot. Didn't work, and in the end, don't care too much. So yeah, unfortunately, stupid customs. They did their job. This one, unfortunately, was. I mean, it's not a commercial model. It's not like this is like Crossbow Mark 1. This is a handmade tool which Jörg made. There's no reference, so I think it went through the second inspection, and whoever decided, obviously there's a broadhead, there's a Legolini, thingamajiggy, and there's this big stock. It must be a crossbow. So that's unfortunate. Okay, era for indoors, thick or thin arrows. The general consensus is that thick arrows are more advantageous because it's more likely you would cut the line, and that's something which you want to exploit. So thicker arrows are more likely to get line cutters and therefore kind of bump your score up. That said, there's no real evidence that thicker arrows will win more competitions. In the end, it's the archer's skill, and you see a lot of top-level archers will use their regular X10s for indoor shooting because they'd rather have one setup which is perfectly tuned rather than change their tune and change their arrows for indoor shooting. So there are indoor specialized arrows which are thicker, and if you want to go to the trouble of tuning for them, then you can. But since most people shoot outdoor primarily, they'll more likely use their outdoor arrows for indoor shooting as well. CB, where to keep my bows? In a secret location, and at my club too. I'm getting so many bows now that I have to kind of like lend to my club indefinitely. And there are quite a few models, especially Mandarin Duck and Nika Archery. They send some pretty decent beginner things, so I tend to leave them at the club for other people to see, try out. I might rotate a few times. Bows and bows as well. They're pretty high quality equipment, but I don't use them, so I tend to let the club use it and let other people sample them. You see before, for example, at the beginner video with Chris, who I haven't seen unfortunately, but Chris, he changed his mind quite quickly. Like he tried a few bows. He thought about doing wooden traditional, but then he tried the modern recurve, which I had set up in the club, and he really loved it. So at the moment I'm trying to give them as much use as possible by lending them to people, and they're kind of like backup bows. But yeah, I normally store them as decoration on the wall these days. So depends on the bow, but for the most part they kind of lie around in boxes or hang on my wall. Speaking of which, I haven't reviewed this one yet. I've had this lying around for a while. I was sent one of the early models of the Mandarin Duck Strider, so people asked for this particular bow. I've got it right here. I had a bit of a gaffe, by the way. I'm not sure if anyone actually saw my post, but they didn't put the stickers on for quite a few of the recent bows. So they sent me a bunch of stickers, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll stick it on. Unfortunately, I was holding the rod upside down, so the sticker is actually upside down on my one, so I stuck it on the wrong way. Whoops! So there goes my sponsorship. Anyway, I've got this. I've been holding off. I've been too busy with schoolwork to get things done. But I also done for rest. So normally I shoot this for rest, but I don't have one at the moment. I might just use a stick-on rest instead. Just use a plastic hunter rest. Those work just as fine. These are meant to be shot off the shelf, but yeah, whatever. Same difference. People shoot these short risers off the shelf. Off normal rest anyway. Okay. I think that basically comes. Space. Do you have any favorite mantras? Oh, this is a very good question. Favorite mantras? I do have some, which the second part of the question is true. They do change. What are my favorite mantras? Okay, so the one which I try to remember more often, the one which kind of goes through my head, it's not a mantra. It's simply power, power, power. That's because my main weakness is I tend to collapse on the shot, and my coach always told me power it through. And I can still hear the voice of my coach in the back of my head saying power it through, because I tend to come here and stop, and my shot collapses. So he always tells me to power it through. So when I'm getting tired, I tend to go to that mantra. It's like power, power, power. Not everyone should do this, by the way, because other people have different problems. For me, I collapse more the shots. I normally go stop here. I go, no, keep going. Keep it going. Keep the shot going. Power, power, power. That tends to be my main go-to mantra when I'm going to competitions. Power, power, power. Other things, one of my favorite ones is shoot the arrow, not the score. You might have a bad arrow. You go, no, can't think about that. Shoot the arrow, not the score. And more recently, we saw the one with Ahmed where he talked about Turkish archery. Was it talent draws the bow, destiny guides the arrow? So that was something that's interesting as well. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't really have a favorite mantra. The one I tend to go to just power, power, power. More recently, I've gone to visualizing the shot more. Something I tell my students a lot is in visualizing the shot. The shot's already happened. You just haven't realized it yet. And in a sense, like you can already kind of determine the result of the shot before you even start the shot, and that's because of your mindset. If your mindset isn't starting in the right place, then the arrow will not go where you want it to. It doesn't matter how good the draw is or releases. If you're mentally not visualizing the shot, then that can also result in poor shooting. So often you find that just resetting, resetting, and then visualizing a shot as it happens, and then doing it right away without any hesitation, it will play out exact the way you saw it in your head. So that's another of my favorite ones. The shot's already happened. It's very, very much like maybe you can talk about there. It's like you're already dead. The shot already happened. Let's see. I missed the question before, did I? Remind me what it was, hyper casual. It's getting late, so I'm not really seeing these questions. And of course, I don't have the screen here. I'm using my pop-up, which is in the same spot, but I don't have the questions over here, which you don't mind too much, hopefully. Marco, what does a rawhide finish do to the bow? I don't know, a rawhide finish. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Makes it look like rawhide. I don't know. Christian, bowhand, better all fingers curled or enough to curl pinky? Good question. This is actually I'll grab this Strata again. This isn't the bow you're talking about, but we'll use this, okay? There's actually a lot of variation how you do this. The key, if you're doing a target archery, or bare bow or with Olympic, then they recommend a 45-degree angle of the fingers. So normally the fingers will go 45 degrees off to the side. Now, there are variations in how you do this. Some people the most recommended way is to have the fingers relaxed like that. Some people will curl the finger against. That's okay as well. Some coaches will dismiss this entirely because any pressure against the riser will induce torque. So that's why some coaches will dismiss any contact with the riser and will get you to go fingers off. So fingers off is ideal. That's fine as well, by the way, shooting trad especially. That's there. That's more for trad shooting. We have no sling. With a sling, you just let go. So either this is fine, or even this is okay. You don't want to curl it to any tension. You can see the difference, right? There's relaxed and there's tense. If you're tensing on this, that's bad. You're inducing a lateral movement on the riser, and you're going to have a bad result there. If you keep it relaxed, just pin them, that's fine. But just know what's comfortable for you. So I can't dictate to you what is correct. Your coach will vary. But there are two different schools of thought, and both are equally fine. You can have it up here, out here, or you can have it slightly pressed against. Both are equally good. And if you can get a cleaner grip and release on one, then use that one. Okay, don't let someone dictate how to do it, unless they can show you how to do it right their way. Space shotgun. Yeah, the arrows in the gold, trace it back to the bow. Nice. That's very good mindset. Anyway, I reckon we'll leave it there. I've got a lot of schoolwork to do. It is unfortunately crunch time, and I do want to try and sort my tech problems at some point. But yeah, hopefully that's helped a lot. By the way, thanks for those who have provided answers as well. There are quite a few things I don't know, things like bare bow and basically half the questions already asked. So I do what I can, but hopefully that's given me something to work with. So I'll probably will be signing off in a few minutes. I definitely want to check out some of these problems. And of course, we'll be back maybe a form check. I am, of course, flying around to Sydney in December, so I might not be available for the form checks. But if you're in Sydney, then do let me know. If you want to catch up over dinner, or recommend a pho restaurant, then I'm happy to check it out. Pretty excited to travel. Obviously I haven't did not a lot of traveling recently, so you know, I'm pretty excited to go to a different place, get on my comfort zone, and see different cities. Haven't been to Sydney yet, by the way. So yeah, if you're up in Sydney, let me know. Give me a buzz, send me a message, and we might hang out for a bit or shoot at a club somewhere. I'll be bringing my bow as well, so I've got this big like luggage for my bow, like being lugged around. But be very interested to meet people up there in Sydney. Anyway, thanks a lot for your can you do better? Thanks a lot for your participation. I was going to say attendance. This is not my class. Thanks a lot for joining me tonight on my Q&A. Hopefully the tech problems haven't been too intrusive, and hopefully next time we'll get everything sorted out much better. Again, thanks for joining me. This is New Sensei, and hopefully we will see you next time.